Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this edition of the 700 Club. It's a historic day for Israel and the United States. Today, President Trump fulfills his promise to move the American embassy to Jerusalem. 70 years to the day after Israel proclaimed its independence.
A big day. Meanwhile, blood has been spilled on the other side of Israel's border as Palestinians are protesting in Gaza. Chris Mitchell is on location at the new embassy in Jerusalem.
It's very exciting here at the site of the new U.S. Embassy. That excitement is reflected in today's Jerusalem Post, which says, "Promises made, promises kept. Thank you, Mr. President." The White House delegation is represented by Ivanka and Jared Kushner, and there's dozens of U.S. senators, congressmen, and women here attending the ceremony, as well as members of President Trump's Evangelical Advisory Board. President Trump himself will be making a video presentation during the ceremony. And all of this excitement comes 70 years to the day after U.S. President Harry Truman was the first world leader to recognize the State of Israel. And Christians and Jewish leaders believe today will be a blessing to the U.S. and to Israel.
I think America is coming in alignment with biblical truth.
The Bible mentions Jerusalem and Zion almost 1,000 times. It's also been the capital of the Jewish people for 3,000 years.
This has been a theme that's in our spiritual DNA. And therefore, when the President of the United States moves the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem and recognizes Jerusalem as Israel's capital, he is addressing something at the core of Jewish identity.
That history started thousands of years ago when King David captured Jerusalem and made it his capital. 400 years later, the Jewish people are expelled for 70 years to Babylon, then returned to rebuild the Second Temple with the help of Persia's King Cyrus. Former Israeli ambassador to the United Nations Dory Gold says Trump's embassy move might even compare to that biblical king.
That was a huge charitable act on his part, which is in our historical memory. And the fact that now President Trump is going to move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem puts him in a special category, and perhaps even the category of the ancient King Cyrus of Persia.
Fast forward to 1967 and the Six-Day War, when Israel reunites Jerusalem under its sovereignty. Then in 1980, Israel officially makes Jerusalem its capital, and countries worldwide move their embassies from the city in protest.
The Christian Embassy was founded after 13 national embassies left Jerusalem, and it provided a unique moment where the Jewish people were willing to accept our hand of friendship.
David Parsons is with the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem. As a lawyer, he helped draft the Jerusalem Embassy Act, passed by Congress in 1995, mandating the embassy move to Jerusalem.
And now, 22 years later, after all these delays and waivers, it is back to our order. Trump has recognized Jerusalem. The ambassador is going to be working here, and then they're going to start building the building. So it's sort of a moment of personal vindication for me.
Tony Perkins and Michelle Bachmann are on President Trump's Evangelical Advisory Council. They said the move will be good for the U.S., other nations, and Mideast peace.
The scripture is pretty clear on that, and that those who bless Israel will be blessed.
Israel's enemies have always fought on the propaganda argument of words, the fact that Israel was illegitimate and had no right to this land. President Trump, excuse the pun, played a Trump card. He's taken that argument off the table. He said, look, we aren't going to even talk about this anymore, that Jerusalem is or isn't Israel's. It is. We're making a decision. It is.
President Trump's decision effectively recognizes the western part of the city as Israel's capital. Most holy sites are in the eastern part. Gold says only in a united Jerusalem under Israeli sovereignty would those sites be protected.
Jerusalem's been the capital of the Jewish people for 3,000 years. I don't see that changing. I think as long as we have freedom of worship, freedom of access guaranteed, I think that many in the Arab world will acquiesce to the idea that Jerusalem remains the undivided capital of Israel.
Chris Mitchell, CBN News, at the new U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem.
Well, it's a great day. You know, they've been maintaining that fiction that, well, the capital of Israel is actually Tel Aviv. Nonsense. It was Jerusalem. You know, every nation has a right to declare what its own capital is. And somehow the Arab nations were saying, well, Israel doesn't have the right to declare Jerusalem because we want part of Jerusalem. Well, they're not going to get it. And the president is saying, you know, that so-called green line between the various parts of Jerusalem aren't in effect anymore. There's a unified capital for one nation, and we salute Israel on this particular time in its life. And Wendy, it's a great move.
Can you even imagine the security measures they're going to have to take, though, to keep that place safe?
Well, it's going to be tough. You know, I've been over there with, you know, terrorists that come in to try to tear things up.
Yeah.
They invaded one hotel. I happened to be staying in this particular hotel, and I wasn't there at the time, but before, not, you know, very shortly before I arrived, some Arab terrorists got loose in the hotel, tried to kill people.
Wow. So,
yeah, Israel is, you know, they're having warfare in the Gaza, but it's going to be all right.
Okay.
Well, stay with CBNNews.com for complete coverage of today's historic events, including live coverage this morning on our Faith Nation program. And later in today's show, we'll take you back to 1948, when Israel declared independence and the Arab nations surrounding them moved toward war. But first, thousands of Palestinian protesters are massed along the Gaza border with Israel. George Thomas reports from the CBN newsroom. Here's George.
Thank you, Pat. That is right. It's being called the bloodiest day in weeks of protests. Protesters in Gaza set fire to tires and launched assaults on the border fence. The IDF responded with force, killing scores of protesters. Earlier, Israel jets dropped leaflets warning protesters that approaching the fence puts their lives in jeopardy. CBN's Gordon Robertson addressed Washington, D.C. summit celebrating Israel's 70th anniversary Sunday night. He spoke of CBN's commitment to creating documentaries such as To Life, highlighting Israel's humanitarian work around the world.
We have to look very carefully at what Israel is doing, because they are doing something rather extraordinary. No other nation is doing as much as they are, given the size of their population. Here's a country, size of New Jersey, and that stat, 140 countries have received aid from Israel since 1980.
CBN co-sponsored the Israel 70 and Strong Summit. If it seemed as if this past weekend had a bit more pomp and circumstance than usual, you're right. Across the country, many colleges celebrated graduation, and Regent University was no different. Thousands of royals got the chance to walk across stage, shake Chancellor Pat's hand, and get their hard-earned diplomas. Here are some of the highlights from Saturday's commencement, featuring guest speaker Dr. Chauncey Crandall.
It was a perfect spring morning as Regent University's class of 2018 proceeded to their graduation ceremony. Regent's 39th graduating class is its largest yet, 1,900 strong from 10 graduate and undergraduate programs. The keynote speaker was world-renowned cardiologist, author, and lecturer Dr. Chauncey Crandall.
That you are different, that you are special, set apart from the world, and different than what the world can offer. You will be recognized as the reliable one, the honest one, the non-rebellious one, and as a supportive individual. You possess now something of great value, something that the world needs. And what the world needs is Jesus Christ today.
Known for Christian vision and excellence, Regent offers 129 online and on-campus fields of study. Regent draws students from 70 countries and has 21,000 alumni. This year's commencement included Regent's first graduates of several new programs: cybersecurity, nursing, and healthcare management.
Even when the dark comes crashing through, when you need a friend to carry you, when you're broken on the ground, you found.
Terry Smith, an outstanding student of the School of Education, addressed her fellow graduates.
Regent prepared us to be academically successful and socially relevant, but it is God who trusts us to choose the excellence we define, the innovation we expect, and the integrity of a wholesome life.
Founder and Chancellor Dr. Pat Robertson gave this charge to the graduates.
The Lord's charge to you is fear not. Do not be afraid. The future is wonderful because God is the future. The God who loves you is the future.
Finally, the moment they'd waited years for.
You can now flip your tassels.
Pat, you were right there, had a front row seat. It was a special moment for you, sir.
It really was great. I mean, it was just the largest class in history, 1950, I think it was. Very beautiful.
Such a beautiful day, and I love that message to the students. Fear not.
Fear not.
Yeah.
The Lord has said, I don't hold the future, I am the future.
Wow.
And when you step out into the future, you step out into God. And that's what I wanted to tell them, and so don't be afraid.
Amen.
But we're just thrilled at this. By the way, if you're interested, we have tremendous new school of healthcare management, nursing, Bachelor of Science in Nursing, Master of Nursing, Doctorate of Nursing, nursing practice, and so forth. It's all coming out. Plus, the Navy has signed on to our cyber program, the Navy cyber team. We're educating them. We had a beautiful letter from the Defense Department saying we qualified to train people for the Defense Department.
The cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity, absolutely. We have a cyber range that's probably the most sophisticated of any university in America. All right, for more information, here's the numbers. Regent EDU is 1-866-910-7615, and people are being enrolled they're about 8 times during the year when you can sign up, so it's really fantastic. And it's great to be with them. I speak to each of the graduating classes, and so I had to give about 8 messages during the day. And it's just a thrill to see lawyers and psychologists and business people and leaders in various fields. It's really a great thing.
Education, what's the motto? Education to change?
Christian leaders to change the world.
Amen.
Christian leaders to change the world. And it's a wonderful school. It's not easy. The grade point average is something in excess of 3.1 or 2. And so it's a high level. And then we've got an honors program that has a number of people in it with 4.0 averages. I mean, so it's really top.